really our goal is that we're making tax planning actionable for every advisor out there. And so this isn't, hey, you need to become a CPA. We're not trying to get anybody in trouble providing tax advice, but we're helping them better identify, okay, what am I already doing that has a tax impact? And then how do I use being tax aware or tax focused as a marketing tool, as a value add? The people I respect the most are still always learning. And so we intentionally set up our summit with extra long breaks and opportunities for people to learn from each other. And we just get up and tell people that the professionals, regardless of industry, that I respect the most are the ones who are continually learning. Like the people who present themselves as, nope, I already have all the answers. Like, let me just talk at you. I don't have time for those people.
Systems work, people fail. Welcome to InsureMark's Advisor Mentorship Podcast with Vice President Jeremy Hauser.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Hauser. And as we are in quarter four, we continue to talk to not just entrepreneurs, but also our show. We continue to educate some of the financial advisors that are consistently tuning in. And today I have a pretty exciting guest on. We have a little backstory as well, too, that we'll talk about here at the top of the episode. But I have Steven Jarvis, who's actually the founder of Retirement Tax Services. How are we doing today, Steven?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. I'm excited for this conversation.
I know you are. Yeah, I know for the audience who may have already known, I actually got an opportunity to meet Steven last month officially. And fascinating enough, my wife during that actual morning, so I'll talk about the story here in a second, but my wife basically asked me, so who are you going to go meet with? I was like, some guy I met on the internet.
I met on the internet. I've had worse internet experiences. This was a pretty great one. So, I mean, here we are following up on it.
I know, right? So for the people that don't know, so last month, so this year for 2025, I actually put out a challenge for myself. So this year I'm doing 1,000 miles of running. So right now I'm going into September. So just thinking about when this airs, I should be done by the time this airs, but we'll see. But through September, I'm at 911 miles of running. So should be finishing up hopefully the 1,000 miles in October. But put out a quick little random poll out on LinkedIn about a month ago. And the question was, I figured since we're running consistently anywhere from 3 to 7 miles or so a day or every other or every 3 days, I wanted to just see, based off my time, I thought I was going pretty fast, about 7 minutes, about 7:15 or so for like an average split. So I just asked the fellow network, what's your fastest mile, or how fast, if you were to run a mile tomorrow, how fast would you run? And do you actually remember? So I know you answered, but do you remember what the polling actually showed out of like 50 people that answered that?
I want to say it was skewing to like 7 minutes and below. And so I think my comment was probably just a little bit snarkier than it needed to be of, hey, what do you think the results would be if we made people go run that mile? Because I do quite a bit of running, and I mean, 7-minute miles isn't going to get you the Olympics, but that is not your average person. That's not, I casually run. Like I'm working really hard. So the fact that you're consistently doing that yourself, I was really impressed with what you were putting down, but I just question most things on the internet, especially self-selected surveys.
Yeah. So it actually came back, right. So exactly what you said. It wasn't the top answer, but it was the second answer. It was under 7 minutes. So it was roughly, I think, 23%. And then the top one was anywhere from 7 minutes to 8:29, which, I mean, that's fair. That's a fast mile for itself.
It's moving.
But that was like 40 something percent. I was thinking to myself, man, like a lot of people in my network are they're running.
Just crushing it.
So we ran, and I think, so basically we ran last month. And so you had a challenge of wanting to run sub 6, right?
Yeah, so that's one of those benchmarks that's not like a necessary accomplishment for the average person in life. Like it doesn't inherently make you better. But I have a background in running, and I just kind of figure whatever else I'm doing, if I can throw down a 6-minute mile, like I feel pretty dang good about what I'm doing in life.
Yeah.
And so it had been a while since I'd tried it, and since I had just kind of put that challenge out there of, wait, how many of these people can really do it? You were up for an adventure enough to say, sure, if you're going to be in Houston, let's do this.
Yeah. And I think for, and once we started running, I think by or lap one, and actually you asked me too. You're like, so I think you even asked like, what's the strategy here? And I was like, I'm going to go about a minute 30 on the first, maybe a minute 40. And I didn't even realize when I was saying that to you that like, well, no kidding, because you got to do it under 6. You got to go under a minute 30.
I think your first response was, I want to take it a little bit easy on the first lap, maybe like a minute 50. I was like, oh, well, a minute 30 is what we need to do to be at 6 minutes. And you hung with me pretty well for the first lap. And then honestly, Jeremy, when we got done, I felt a little bit bad because I think you finished at like 6:18, which is a really impressive mile, especially for anyone over the age of 20, which we both clearly are. That's a really impressive mile. But so many things in life are relative that I'm sure there was part of you that was like, but Steven beat me. But like a 6:18 mile is very, very impressive.
Hey, when I saw you on lap 2 and I just saw that distance forming, I was like, yeah, this guy's a runner. So, but it was kudos to you. I mean, hell, you did it. And I think, so you did beat it. So you got 550 something, right? Or 530.
5:53. Yeah.
So at least now you know exactly how fast your mile is. So now that bar is raised for me. I gotta do it. I mean, I didn't realize I'd be that close to 6, but um, but no, man, that was pretty good. And so you basically are now going around. And I saw something recently. So you're traveling a lot in your role, right?
I travel a lot speaking at different conferences. That's why I was in Houston. I speak at FPA chapters, at estate planning council chapters, at big industry events. We just hosted our own conference. Literally, as we're recording this last week, we were in Phoenix with about 300 people, and we can get more into what we do at our conference. But I travel around for that. And then a few years ago, I got into Spartan races, which are trail running and obstacles kind of all combined together. Mostly because I realized that I stay a lot more active and therefore healthy if I have races to train for. And so this last year, I've done races in Seattle and Salt Lake City, actually in Finland. My wife and I got to go do a race in Finland.
Oh, cool.
We're gonna be doing races in Arizona here in a month. So yeah, we get around a little bit. Oh, I did a race in Boise with my son. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, I get around a little bit.
Put the 200% multiplier to work with Corebridge's brand new Power Select ACO to help increase your earnings. Like most index annuities, ACO offers growth potential through crediting strategies linked to the performance of a variety of market indices. What makes ACO unique is that it uses an interest credit overlay with a 200% multiplier to help boost earnings from these strategies. Subject to a maximum, ACO is designed to provide enhanced upside potential, particularly in low to moderate return environments where clients need it most. For more information on this particular product, feel free to reach out and go to www.insuremarkamp.com/jhauser and click on Learn More. Yeah, whenever you warmed up, so I didn't warm up. I mean, I stretched, but when you on the warm up were like, all right, let's do a lap. I want to get my blood flowing. We did 2 laps, and I was like, buddy, we just did half a mile. Like I was already tired.
Yeah, that's the only way I can make sure I don't blow out a hamstring is to make sure I really warm up.
So that was the first time we actually had an opportunity to chat a little bit, learn a little bit about your services. Seems like we have a lot of parallels of what we do for the most part.
Yeah.
But obviously, I work with a lot of financial advisors. You do as well, too.
So I did back office support for my dad when I was in college. He was a financial advisor at the time. But no, I went the CPA route for quite a while, about 10 years. I did stereotypical CPA things. So whatever you envision a CPA office looking like, probably me. And then getting close to 5 years ago now, I was having so many financial advisors come to me and basically say, hey, we can't find CPAs who will play nice with us. Let's work together to create a resource. And so now I spend my time helping financial advisors better understand and communicate the value of tax planning and then getting involved in the process where it makes sense.
And what's interesting with your team is, at least for what I know about it, and I could be completely off, but I know most advisors have learned where if they have that strategic alliance with a CPA, they assume that it's just going to be just amazing, or they start to work with a CPA.
Yeah.
And a lot of programs point them to working with a local CPA, but y'all's firm's a little different, right? So you guys do it completely different from a marketing stance. It's not really marketing.
Yep. So we don't market to taxpayers. All of our marketing all of our relationship building is with financial advisors because we want to be the tax experts, but clients need someone to look at the rest of their life. Right. The medical analogy is the one that comes up the most often financial advisors tend to play more of a general practitioner, of like, hey, I can help diagnose, I can help with most of your health concerns, but there's going to be times where we need specialists. And so for us to stay as specialists in our tax lane, we found the best results when we're partnering alongside an advisor who's taking care of everything else. And so depending on the advisor's background and experience, that can look a lot of different ways as far as how deep they're getting into the tax side. But what I often tell advisors is every money decision has a tax impact. So there's advisors who are proactively doing tax planning, and then there's advisors who are negligently doing tax planning. They're making recommendations with money that have a tax impact, and they're ignoring it.
So what do you find usually when working with the advisor for the most part? How long have y'all been doing it? Or maybe talk a little bit more about like, so RTS. So when did that start and, how's it evolved?
Yeah, so it started in early 2021. Is how long we've been specifically working alongside financial advisors. And we essentially work in two tracks. We have the side of trying to provide education resources and content to advisors. So this is, I host a podcast, we do webinars, I speak all over the industry. And then we have kind of monthly resources that come out in a whole library of checklists and reference guides. Really, our goal is that we're making tax planning actionable for every advisor out there. And so this isn't, hey, you need to become a CPA. We're not trying to get anybody in trouble providing tax advice, but we're helping them better identify, okay, what am I already doing that has a tax impact? And then how do I use being tax aware or tax focused as a marketing tool, as a value add for my clients? So that's the one side of it, that we're trying to help as many advisors as possible really transform the way they incorporate tax planning. And then we also have a few dozen advisors that our team does hands-on tax preparation for their clients. And so this is very collaborative. We're taking responsibility for the tax return. That's our responsibility. I'm the one signing the return, but we're leveraging the advisor to make that a better experience for the client. We're getting 1099s directly from the advisor. We're getting context from the advisor, making sure that there's really that great interaction that everyone talks about, but few people really experience in practice.
Selling the Ibexus FIA Plus and Wealth Defender FIAs just got even easier. They have increased street comp by 1% for clients aged 71 and up, putting more in your pocket while helping retirees grow and protect their wealth. Plus, Ibexus has raised participation rates so you can offer even more value and upside potential. It's a win-win for your clients and your business. For more information, go to www.insuremarkamp.com/jhauser and click on Learn More. Don't miss this opportunity to boost your earnings and deliver stronger solutions. So how is that? Basically, are y'all on behalf of the team? So you come in working with that advisor and you're just a resource, or are you actually known as a third party group? How do advisors do that conversation?
Yeah, we make it real clear we're a third-party group because just to make sure that we stay in line with compliance, like we need an engagement letter signed from the client. We need the client to understand what our roles and responsibilities are. And so a lot of advisors we work with definitely promote this to their clients as a team effort, that kind of this all goes hand in hand. But it's clear to everybody we're a third party. We're not white labeling tax preparation. Actually, I think that's a pretty terrible idea. If you don't have to put your name on a tax return, why would you? But that's part of our professional responsibility. So it's more that we're going to keep the advisor in the loop on everything that we do. And it helps avoid a lot of surprises and minimize a lot of pain when I have an advisor I can go to. So common example is we do a tax return and there's a giant balance due. And then instead of just going to the client and saying, hey, it looks like you owe $50,000, what the heck? Which even if I of course I would word that more nicely, but the client's going to have this moment of panic of, oh, geez, what happened? If instead I can go to the advisor and say, hey, Jeremy, we work on this shared client. Based on the draft we put together, it looks like there's a really large balance due. Do you have any context for that, or have you had any conversations with the client? And then a couple of different things can happen there. One is there's definitely some times where the advisor comes back and says, actually, Steven, absolutely. Here's some life events that happen, and the client's expecting that. We've got the money set aside, so they are not going to be surprised. Fantastic. That's an expected outcome, and so it's not going to be as painful. Sometimes the advisor will say, actually, Steven, no, I wasn't expecting that at all. Here's some things that went on. Can we double check that those were reported correctly? And sometimes 1099s on their own, the tax reporting forms, don't give a tax preparer all the information that we need. And so there's definitely times where we thought we had prepared an accurate return based on the information we were given. And then when the advisor provides additional context, we realize, oh, there was information missing that the client didn't even know they needed to give to us. And now we get to correct that before we send it to the client and give them that moment of panic.
Which is great. So for like the entrepreneur that is always delegating things out, you've mentioned, so they do a couple things. So they can plug into y'all's system so they can use you literally firsthand.
Yeah.
And they can also, just by following you guys a little bit, y'all send out monthly, you said newsletters or monthly, what do y'all send out?
Newsletters and reference guides, like worksheets they can use with clients. And so we have free content we put out through the podcast, through LinkedIn. I try to be as helpful and valuable as I can. And then we have a monthly membership to be part of our community where they're getting access to more detailed resources that they can use in client meetings, that they can use in client materials, marketing materials, things like that. We also have a membership that gets advisors access to our twice monthly office hours, because one of the complaints we hear from advisors is, hey, CPAs won't return my calls. That Google has 100 million results, and it's tough to navigate through all of that. ChatGPT is great, but it still makes up information. Like, how do I apply this to a specific client situation? So as we're recording this just yesterday, we did office hours. Is there with 4 advisors. We spent almost an hour together kind of helping them navigate different situations. And so that's access to a resource they can't find anywhere else.
That's very valuable because I know also, especially for advisors in general. So we're doing Q4. So we're going to start doing business planning calls here. Once this airs, we're probably just now starting
Uh-huh.
for that. And so one of the things for an advisor, and I seem to, the last 14 years of doing this, a lot of them do want to talk more about taxes. And it seems like we have that same conversation a year later and then a year later, and they just never do it. So like, what are maybe some of the things that they can start
Yep.
approaching the topic more with customers? Do you have like any wisdom for an
Yeah.
advisor listening to this, of like 1 or 2 things they should just at least to start the conversation with clients around taxes?
Yep, I've definitely got some thoughts. You can decide if it's wisdom or not, but I have worked with a lot of advisors on this, so I think there's definitely some value here.
We want to know what works since you've been doing it.
Yep.
So
So what I've seen work is that, especially if you're new to this, just start small and set clear expectations. Just like anything else, I mean, if you want to run a faster mile, the best way to do that is to get out and run more miles, just to get out and practice. Practice is what makes the difference. And so if you're brand new to this, start with your own tax return. Print out a copy of your own tax return and go line by line and say, hey, if I didn't know who this was, what could I learn about them and what would I suggest to them? And then as we build our comfort, we're going to start grabbing client tax returns. In fact, if it was up to me, every advisor would get every client's tax return every single year. And not that you're going to audit the whole tax return or that you have to become a tax professional. You can start literally this simply. Whatever it is you do with the client, just start with that one thing and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we've started getting tax returns from all of our clients every year to make sure that this thing we do together gets on your tax return correctly. That could be dividends and capital gains from a taxable brokerage account. That could be payouts from an annuity that you helped with, whatever that looks like. Start with that one thing that you do and just make it really clear. Hey, we're going to look at this one thing. And then you have their tax return. You've told them what you're going to do. You follow up and tell them that you did it, which most of the time it's going to be, yep, that thing looked great. Now you've got access to so much more information. And as you get lots of client tax returns, you can start to see the things that are most relevant to your clients, because the tax return or the tax code is massive. If you set out and say, hey, I'm going to learn the entire tax code, you're going to quit on day 2 and you're never going to pick it back up because it's just too daunting. But if you're getting client tax returns, you can say, oh, for my clients, here's 3 areas that are consistently relevant. I need to understand how those work. Now we can really narrow our focus. And so what I've found is the people who are most successful have a checklist or system they use when they go about these things. So a few years ago, we just created a checklist for reviewing tax returns because we were getting so many questions about it. At some point in the marketing, my team had said something about a 37-point checklist. That is what it's called, the 37-point checklist on reviewing tax returns. I snuck in a whole bunch of extra things in there. So there's like sub bullet points. So it's still technically 37, but it's a couple of pages of here are the things that are most relevant for clients that typically work with a financial advisor. And then you have a framework to delegate this to team members to make sure you're doing this consistently and repeatably, and that you're focused on how do I take action. And so the whole checklist is actually in the form of questions that you should be asking about the tax return.
Wow. So you said there's 37, but then they have sub questions in there. Like, so even that to me, so where do you start? So you said, it's great advice, by the way. So they're just using their own stuff to get
Yeah.
familiarized with the form and everything of opportunities. So just getting that advisor the confidence to feel like they're going to have a good conversation with somebody and not just completely botch it. So out of the 37 checklists, what are usually the ones that advisors so how do they get that? How do they get that form?
Yeah, so you can definitely get it out on retirementtaxservices.com. It's been downloaded over 1,000 times at this point. And so it gets used very extensively. One of the things I like about it is, well, one, it comes from real world experience. This wasn't, hey, Perplexity, help me with 37 things I should do. I sat down with a financial advisor that I work really closely with that does a lot of tax planning. I said, hey, let's work together and come up with the things that we see most often for clients. And so as advisors download this checklist, I'll definitely get advisors who say, Steven, this is all the easy stuff. And I say, yeah, that's on purpose. And so there isn't a question in there that like gets into the nuances of how, makers tables work for depreciation for capital assets. Like it's not, this isn't, hey, let's get you a PhD in the tax code. This is what are those things that we most consistently see issues with or where we see opportunities. So there's questions on there about intentional charitable giving. And an advisor probably might know off the top of their head, of course, 90% of taxpayers take the standard deduction. So I need to be asking about that. But then but are you actually doing that? And without a checklist, are you consistently doing that? Or if you have that reminder of, wait a second, I see that this client is taking the standard deduction, but they've mentioned this foundation they really care about. Is this a conversation we can have where we can talk about donor advised funds or qualified charitable distributions or something else along those lines? Jeremy, we even start with as simple of things as, hey, does their basic demographic information match the CRM? Because we've seen tax returns where the social security number is wrong, where the clients moved out of state 3 years ago and no one updated that. When people change tax preparers, a lot of things can get missed, like capital gain or capital loss carryovers, because they're switching systems. And so it's meant to be, okay, here are the things we most often see with your more stereotypical client of a financial planner.
Are you tired of seeing your clients' renewal rates going down? Maybe your customer started out with a 5% cap, and over the years, it has been cut down to 2%. Sound familiar? Lock in guaranteed rates on Prosperity Life Group's newest FIA, Path Pro Series, an A-excellent company now with a 16% premium bonus with no fee. PLG's Path Pro Series has you covered. You can find Prosperity's perfect renewal rate scorecard and more at www.prosperitylifearc.com. That's prosperitylifearc.com. It's very true. I mean, just the simple concept of people moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I assumed you guys also, so I mean, y'all's offices, is it, especially if you do a lot of hands-on work, not just the virtual aspect of it, but how do y'all work with advisors that want to take it to like y'all's top tier, it sounds like, to have you guys being used as the third party group that's helping them with customers? They don't have to be local, do they?
Nope. So our team works virtually. I'm based in Spokane, Washington. It just happens to be where I am. But I've got team members literally in, I think we cover all the time zones in the United States at this point, including Alaska. Oh, I guess we don't have Hawaii. Maybe we'll have to hire somebody in Hawaii. But so everything we do is virtual. And we just set that expectation up front. So when I talk about office hours, that's something we do over Zoom. And then we record those office hours and share them with our other members. Even when we get to the point where we're doing hands-on tax prep, which that is the piece that we scale the slowest, just because we have to add team members and we're super intentional about how we add to our team. But even as we're doing that, the whole thing works virtually. We just set really clear expectations of here's how the communication works and here's how we're going to get these things done. For the clients that we're working with to do their tax return, we always offer to get on and do a live virtual review of their tax return. This isn't just, hey, submit all your documents and I'll tell you when I'm done. We're trying to create a different, better experience around taxes.
So when we got together, so it was, last month, and I was kind of hearing what you've been doing, and right now it seems like more than ever the advisors we work with, they're entrepreneur spirit, they're running a business, but boy, do they want to delegate certain things. And it's almost to where, like, based off of what you're describing, it's like that's been a hole. It's almost like a gap
Mhm.
where enough to be dangerous. Obviously, they want to know, and they know the blocking and tackling. It seems like of taxes, but the advanced planning and having people that they can bring onto their team, that's kind of a blind spot in some offices. So that's
Yeah.
why I thought after our conversation, I was like, you know what? Actually, this is worth kicking around a little bit more. And then you mentioned y'all had a recent event. So you guys also do like summits. So I think it was called the summit, you said.
Yep, we very simply call it the summit. So this year was the Summit 2025. It was our third edition of it. We're already planning on the Summit 2026. But yeah, essentially, we're getting like-minded advisors in a room, giving them tools to continue to level up, and then giving them opportunities to learn from each other. Everything that we do, whether that's our free resources, our paid resources, our events that we do, everything we do is focused on how do we help people take action. We're super clear with advisors we work with. Like, that's how we're going to measure our success. Like, I don't need to know whether or not you can pass the CPA exam. I want to hear what you did with clients as a result of working with us. And we get to hear those stories all the time. So part of the reason we created the summit was because myself and a couple of business partners, we'd been to lots of tax conferences and we didn't particularly care for any of them. They were either super technical and therefore it made it a little bit challenging to put it into practice, or it was being taught by people who hadn't served a real client in 10, 20, 30 years. And not that those people can't know some good academic information, but there's a big difference between reading me the tax code and telling me how to explain this concept to a client. And so we focus heavily on the here's what you do in practice. And so we have advisors that are part of our programs that come to our events that are all across the spectrum of how much tax knowledge they come to us with. We have advisors that are brand new and say, like, I mean, kind of like you asked before, like, hey, where do I start? We also have advisors who have been doing tax planning for years, and honestly, they do a great job with it, but they come to us because they don't want to spend their time wading through all the things on the internet. They don't want to know what the latest and greatest is. They want to be just handed, like, here's something you could talk to clients about this month.
1,000%. That's where a lot of people, it seems like they want to know, just give me 2 or 3 bullet points of where do I start?
Absolutely. It's a huge emphasis at the summit. And then, I mean, Jeremy, you're obviously going to resonate with this because you spend time talking to people that you can learn from. But I found several years ago that the professionals, regardless of industry, that I respect the most are the ones who are continually learning. Like the people who present themselves as, nope, I already have all the answers. Like, let me just talk at you. I don't have time for those people. And it's not that I'm diminishing the success of anyone who's accomplished something, but just across the board, the people I respect the most are still always learning. And so we intentionally set up our summit with extra long breaks and opportunities for people to learn from each other. And we just get up and tell people that of, hey, we're going to make sure you get value out of this event. But I'll be totally honest, some of that value is going to come from me on stage, but a lot of it's going to come from you guys here in the room. One of the recommendations I make to advisors at any conference they go to is, hey, go with 1 or 2 questions that you're struggling with in your practice or areas you see for improvement, and ask every advisor you possibly can the exact same question. Instead of asking them how their favorite sports team is playing this year, ask them, hey, what are you doing when you get tax returns to review them and add value? How are you managing Roth conversions? What are you doing when a client brings you a tax strategy that you think is a terrible idea? How do you respond to that? And as advisors in the audience ask those questions over and over and over again, that's where they're able to really refine and take back to their office and say, okay, now I'm ready to do something different.
Help your clients renovate, reinforce, and take pride in their financial home. North American has some exciting news. They just launched a powerful new resource designed to help make client conversations easier, more engaging, and more impactful. Discover the blueprint for organizing, protecting, and upgrading your financial life so you can build a lasting legacy and approach retirement with confidence. It's called the North American Financial Home Makeover Campaign. It includes a magazine, a microsite, and an online client prospect assessment. Pretty cool. These resources will help you spot retirement gaps and opportunities, build more long-lasting trust, and start retirement conversations that really matter with prospects and clients. To access this amazing resource, reach out to our team or go to www.insuremarkamp.com www.educator.com/jhauser and click on learn more. That's powerful. And it's so true though, too, because you got, especially you said there's 300 people in the room. So odds are, I mean, you're almost forced. You can't be antisocial. I mean, you got advisors, they're not antisocial usually.
Mm-mm.
So they're going to find at least one or two people. So that's good advice to have one or two questions geared up to ask. And so what were some of the big takeaways this year that y'all talked about?
Yeah, it's a great question. We definitely spent time on, well, one of the things that's happened as this conference has evolved, like the first year, it was a day and a half pure tax related. Like that's what people asked for. That's what people signed up for. But then they all came and then they started asking us other questions as well about marketing, about practice management, about delegation, about these other things that are kind of ancillary to being able to do tax planning. So then year two, still a day and a half, still heavily tax related, but we started incorporating some of these other topics. And so this year we expanded it. It's 2.5 days, and it was a pretty good mix. Still a little heavy on the tax planning side, but a pretty good mix of tax planning, practice management, growth, those kinds of things. And so there are a lot of really good takeaways. Certainly a lot of takeaways around here's how I can go back to my office and do more on this tax planning topic. I heard from several advisors who they took that advice and they asked that same question and were able to get very specific feedback. I heard from an advisor this week who one of the sessions was on 9 tax planning strategies that every business owner should be aware of. And so heard from the advisor that basically they just met with a new client and pretty much just used that presentation to walk through how they could help this business owner save on taxes. And so that was really cool to hear that they literally a week later were able to take that session and put it into practice. Another big focus for us recently, just because again, it's the questions that we get, is helping advisors understand the worth of their business, of their book of business, whatever that looks like, and the options that are out there, whether that's liquidity events or channels they can be in or whatever that might look like, but helping them really understand how they can impact the value of their business. Whether they're a year or 20 years from thinking about those kinds of things, it's never too early to start understanding your value and what your business is worth.
I assume maybe, there's some, the new bill that went through, and so laws are going to be changing.
Mm-hmm.
So from your professional opinion, if you're an advisor that works with business owners, what is something that they need to start really educating themselves on? Just is it charitable giving? You mentioned that already. Or what would be one thing you would probably say for sure, based off of any new rules? What's one that would be a good niche for them?
Yeah, so we definitely did an entire session on the new tax law change. We always want to stay up to date on that. My overall impression of the new tax law change is that it's not going to feel like a big change to most people, because really the biggest change was that tax rates got extended. And so people aren't really going to feel the shift that would have otherwise happened.
Mm-hmm.
Specific to business owners, I mean, bonus depreciation was a big change. So anybody who's in a business that's capital intensive, that might shift timing a little bit of when we're buying capital assets. It's more, I mean, we definitely focused more on what it means for individuals, but it's a lot of small things, not anything that somebody needs to rush out and change their whole plan tomorrow. Really, we reinforced more, because this is certainly our philosophy that we believe very strongly, is that if you take the IRS 1 year at a time, most likely you lose. Like, that's not how good tax planning works. The best tax planning is understanding what the next 5, 10, 20 years might look like, where those big life events are, where we expect to be in relatively low tax brackets versus relatively high tax brackets. And then, yes, specific to individual clients, if we have a client that's charitably inclined, we're going to want to address that. If we're working with business owners, we want to understand what types of retirement plans make sense for them, which allow the highest contributions. When is it time to consider a defined benefit plan? We're even just looking at simple things like, what expenses can you deduct? Does it make sense to fall into one of these traps of, get on TikTok is who I blame for all of the bad tax advice. It's kind of across the internet. But when you see somebody who hired their kids and moved to Puerto Rico to implement the Augusta rule and cost seg everything, it's like, okay, let's pull these things apart and say, okay, which one is actually relevant and meaningful to implement?
I do have an advisor that did move to Puerto Rico recently, but he's doing it the right way. But it's a lot of travel.
Yeah, all those things I mentioned, they are real tax strategies. I think on the internet, sometimes they get presented as if they apply to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Puerto Rico, I definitely know people who have moved to Puerto Rico. And if you're not familiar with that, the general idea is that Puerto Rico, to attract new residents, if you set it up correctly And a big part of that is that you don't come back to the United States for more than a certain number of days. You can pay only 4% federal income tax. There's also huge legal fees involved. You have to have an employee there. You have to have a house there. You have to make charitable contributions. Like this is not an inexpensive commitment. But for the right person who that fits their lifestyle and their bigger goals, yeah, it absolutely works. There's just a lot of like questionable approaches to it.
Unlock new accumulation opportunities with EclipseMark fixed index annuities issued by Standard Insurance Company and available exclusively through Legacy Marketing Group. Offer up to 15% annual penalty-free withdrawals after year 1, plus many rates that are guaranteed not to drop for up to 10 years, a key advantage in today's uncertain rate environment. And for you, earn competitive upfront or trailing commissions. Learn more. Visit www.legacynet.com. EclipseMark is a product of Standard Insurance Company of Portland, Oregon. Licensed in all states except New York. Features and availability may vary by state. This message is for licensed insurance producers only, not for consumers. Legacy Marketing Group is an independent agency not affiliated with Standard Insurance Company.
To your point, though, I think that's where there's just I've heard a lot in the last 12 months, especially of just based off taxes and the opportunity to just it's almost like just being smart with your money.
Yep.
If it, like you said, I think that's well said. If it fits your lifestyle specifically, then yes. And it customer or business owners, especially, like if there's an opportunity that is out there as an advisor, you want to be the one sharing that information with them because that's how you build a relationship with the customer.
Jeremy, one of the things I constantly tell people is that we need to make good life decisions and good business decisions and then figure out the tax efficient way to go about them. So, I mean, some people will say, you know, don't let the tax tail wag the dog, that taxes should be a passenger on the bus, not the driver, whatever analogy you like to use. Even though I'm the tax guy, I will be the first to say taxes should not be the primary reason we do just about anything.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So you guys are doing awesome stuff. It sounds like it's evolved and it always does. I mean, we do a lot of in-person events as well too. And as you know, it's always, you get the surveys, you get things of like, all right, how can we get better?
Yep.
So for the next one, you said y'all have already started a planner. Y'all got, where is that going to be and when?
Yep. September 27th through 30th, 2026 in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah, super excited. We already have people registering, which is great for us. It's going to be, every year we make sure we're leveling up. So there'll still definitely be a tax emphasis, but this next year, it's really going to center around doing great financial planning with taxes at the center. And so we're going to take time. It's easy to get distracted by shiny objects. We're going to take time next year to go through and give advisors opportunities to see how other advisors are doing what some people might think are the simple things. When was the last time you saw how someone else walked a client through estate planning or risk management or investments or taxes or any of those types of things? And so we're going to have sessions that specifically address those things. We're going to have sessions on all sorts of great things. I'm super excited about the agenda we're already building out. But yeah, September 27th through 30th. In Phoenix. If you go to retirementtaxservices.com, there's already a button out there for the Summit 2026. It's going to be incredible.
I mean, you're relatively a younger guy too. So for the most part, are y'all doing a lot of, I would only assume, right? Because all this data, the statistics I keep sharing with some of the advisors, especially the ones that listen to the show here, we got attention spans dropping. A lot of people nowadays are all on social media for the most part. I think the stat I saw for 2025, it's roughly a little over 38% of the people that were surveyed. 38% of those people that were surveyed said that they're on social media specifically for just passing time. So literally instead of like going for a walk or doing other things.
Jeez.
Another one was like people were on their phone 8 hours a day. So therefore, the reason I'm bringing all that up. So you got generational wealth that's being transferred to the younger generation. So call it Gen X, baby boomer, so on and so forth. So I would only assume taxes is it doesn't matter who you are, everybody's got to do it. So that's like the number one conversation to have with someone to start to talk financial planning with them. So with those stats of, I would say, social media, you guys providing taxes. So if those individuals in the room were asking you guys about marketing, so how do y'all handle that? Or do y'all do anything on the marketing side? Or is that stuff y'all are starting to help out with creation for like social media marketing?
Yeah, so we're not doing the direct. We're not giving them the marketing materials or telling them like, here's what channel you should be in. Our bigger message to advisors is more of a, hey, focus, don't get distracted. Like, it's so easy to get caught with all these shiny objects if you try 27 different things, but really it's about picking that thing that works for you and getting the reps in as relentlessly as possible. And so actually just at the summit this year, and this is something we'll probably do again, we got a lot of great feedback. We pulled a couple of advisors on stage that we know that are using different marketing channels and seeing a lot of success. And so that they, again, people can learn from people who are doing this stuff right now in practice. This isn't, here's how a seminar works 20 years ago. And I'm not bagging on seminars, because we even had people in the room who said, hey, here's how I'm still getting all of my clients from in-person seminars. But we've got people who are getting their clients from YouTube, from podcasts, from social media. And so that people can like really hear and understand how that works. And then we also, and Jeremy, I'm sure this is something you're familiar with, I think a lot of times the focus is on how do I get the most eyeballs and not how do I convert them to clients. And so we also talk about, and we just share really openly, here's how my funnel works. Here's the process. Here's the touch points. Here's the communication. Here's how I close a client. And we intentionally represent different ways to do this, because while there are definitely some themes that are persistent across successful advisors, that doesn't mean everybody has to do it the exact same way. So we don't get up and say, here's the only way to close a prospect. If you don't say it this exact way, you're going to fail every time. Saying, hey, here's what works for this advisor in this situation, and here's why. Take the part that resonates with you and adjust it where you need to. But more than anything, it's about how much time are you spending doing uncomfortable things that other people aren't willing to do.
Well, it's kind of like running.
Yeah, it's a lot like running.
Yeah, doing the things that nobody wants to do. That's why people are successful.
Yep.
As we're wrapping up, I appreciate your time. Is there anything we missed? So you mentioned the summit that's coming up next year. Any words of wisdom for the audience?
Jeremy, I think that thing we were just hitting on of doing the things that are uncomfortable, and that's whatever that thing you shy away from, that thing that you've thought, hey, I should do that. Should is a terrible word. In our house, that's the worst SH word you can say. Those things that you tell yourself you should do, you need to find ways to lean into that more. It's actually a big thing we do through one of our coaching programs, related but separate from RTS, is just helping people with accountability. We take it to some pretty great lengths. You'd have to come to an in-person event to really experience that. We all like to think that a carrot is enough for us, but carrots don't do it. Sometimes on that thing you should have been doing for a long time, it's the stick that finally gets it done. And so you've got to have people around you. That's the other reason we really love our events, is we put a whole bunch of people in a room who are willing to be uncomfortable. And it's not just inspiring and motivating, like those things are absolutely true, but it gives you people that will, out of friendship, will hold you accountable, will call you on your crap. And 3 months later, when I say, oh, Jeremy, you talked about doing this and this at the summit, like, how's that going? And you're like, Steven, life got busy. Here's this thing that happened. It's like, Jeremy, we all knew life would get busy. Like, get your crap together and do it. And having those types of relationships where that's well received from the person saying it and it's well intentioned from the person giving it, that's transformational.
I like to hear more about that one. It's all about raising the bar and raising the floor. So it sounds like y'all are doing that.
Yeah,
that's good. No, I appreciate your time. Definitely appreciate you coming down and challenging me, beating me. But it is what it is. But hopefully, next time you're in Houston, just let us know. Would love to continue the conversation. You all know. So Steven's website, once again, if you want more information on his tax program, is, what was that again?
retirementtaxservices.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. But all the things we talked about, the 37-point checklist, the summit, our memberships, those are all on retirementtaxservices.com. Yeah, always excited to welcome new people into the community who are excited about delivering value on taxes.
Good stuff. Well, appreciate your time. And thank you so much to the audience for tuning in to this week's episode of the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Jeremy Hauser AMP, and also connect with us on LinkedIn. And as you are sharing this episode with a friend or a colleague, remember, in a world full of betas, be an alpha.